Well, it's the next day, the 31st of July, and I've been weed eating all morning because the temperature's been really nice. But then it started getting hot, so it's now like, what, 1:30 in the afternoon? So I won't be able to do anything till the sun goes down. I'll go back out and finish it up. Meanwhile, let's figure out what we've got to do with our little jukebox cabinet here. Well, first of all, before I put that piece back in, let me get that piece. Hang on a second here. There we go. Now this piece right here, there is nothing wrong with this piece right here. It's solid all the way. Everything's good to go on it. The problem we're having is not this piece. It's here and here. Okay? So this stuff is going to have to go. We're going to have to clean this all up. Get rid of this junk right here, and we're going to have to probably trim this on down. Once I get rid of this, we can go ahead and put that back in and eyeball it and find out what needs to be cut away up here. But right now this is interfering with it dropping back down in. So how do we get that out of there? Well, we take one of these little jewels here. Just nothing to it. We're going to cut right along there like that. We're going to cut down like that. We're going to clean that whole thing out. But we can start by just doing that. And then the rest will be cleaned up real nice. And we'll go ahead and set this in there. So let me clean up. Now, there's some more broken glass. Look at that. Yes, definite bar fight on that one. Well, that looks a lot better. Now let's go ahead and clean it out. I'll eventually have to get the vacuum cleaner back out here. Wifey had to use the vacuum cleaner. Can you imagine that? Taking my shop vacuum cleaner out of my shop. That's horrible. Anyway, she's pretty well cleaned up now. Let's see if we can set that board back in there and see if it'll level up or even up with the top edge here, up here. If not, I'm pretty sure we're going to have to trim a lot of this away. Well, this is the bottom of that board, the part that goes down here like that. And it's kind of rough. It's not broken or busted or anything, just kind of came loose. It needs to be re-glued. This comes out with a couple of screws here, down here. I'll go ahead and take that out. But it needs to be cleaned up a little bit. Let me see here. What did I do with my brush? Well, I had my brush. Anyway, we'll brush it up and clean it up. Alright, that looks a little better. Now we'll go ahead and take these two screws out and remove this little block of wood. I'm probably going to have to, I don't know if I can glue this block of wood back together or just replace it with another one. I've got a few 2x4 pieces here that I plan to use for blocking. We're going to have to do a lot of blocking on this thing, gluing them in place. The more blocks the better. Support blocks. It was recommended by one of our subscribers. I already knew about that. We're going to be putting them here and various places that will need them. And he also recommended, which I hadn't thought of, which was an excellent idea. This is where that top hinge is going to go, that piece of metal. And, like this one right here that holds the hinge on the door. He recommended that I put a piece of aluminum up here. So I have metal on the top and metal on the bottom once we get this wood reinforced. Great idea. Hadn't thought of it. That's going to be done. I appreciate that. Alright, that old piece of crap was off of there. Amazing, huh? It seems to be sturdy underneath that top layer. Maybe we can salvage that. There's a little bit of trim work that needs to be done on the bottom around these rusty screws. These screws are... This whole jukebox screws are all like that. Let me show you a couple more. Look at these. Is that amazing? Yeah. In the junk pile. Alright, what we're going to do now is go ahead and remove, I'm going to take this knife again and I'm going to trim all this crap off of here. We're going to get it down to the actual wood. One other thing about this upper hinge, I've got to make up a space. Let me get my pencil. I don't have a pencil, I can't find it, but we're going to have to make up this space right here with something because it's all gone. I'm going to trim this all out, make it nice and square. And then we're going to have to put something in there about the same thickness as this. Then we'll put our wood and our metal plate for the hinge. I happen to have some really strong fiberglass kind of stuff. And guess what? It's the exact same thickness I need. So that will eventually go up there just like that. Then we'll mount the wood and the plate, bore our holes through, and put our aluminum on this side. So we'll have aluminum, wood, this, another piece of wood, and another plate. And that should beef it up real good. Now I'll have to rough this up real good. You know, it's going to have to really rough up good. I'm going to have to use a really good cement. Now JB Quick probably won't do the trick. It might. I mean, once it gets sandwiched between everything with bolts, I guess it's not going to go anywhere. But that's really going to do the trick. I scrounged that up from work one day. They were throwing these things away, and I said, you know, I bet someday I'm going to have a need for that. I better pick up a couple of these. So I did. I believe we have defeated the problem. All we have to do now is, you know, glue it all back together and put in filler pieces and all that sort of thing. One of our good subscribers who lives just up the road from me in the town of Mountain View, his name is, his YouTube handle is Johnny Umphress. And he said, look John, you know, if you need a piece reproduced, bring it up and we can redo it in my wood shop. That was a great offer, you know, and I really thought I was going to have to take him up on it when I found out that this is pretty solid all the way. We won't need to reproduce it, but I really appreciated that, Johnny. I really do. So, but of course we're not done yet. You know, you never know what the future is going to bring. So I may be, you know, knocking on your door with a handful of wood begging for help before this thing is over. You never know. Well, let's go ahead and see what happens now that I've done some trimming. Now there is a slot that runs along here, just inside the lip, and this little Dumaflachi here runs inside that slot. Let me get over here, we can get a little better focus. There we go, see that? Runs inside that slot. So let's get that in the slot. Look at that, nice and flat and level and nice and even with this up here. We have made great strides with this. Now I was concerned about this space here. I'm like, what the heck is the deal on this space? But then I got looking at the other side, and guess what? The same space is there. But just to make sure, I put this bar back on. Now, if that space is not supposed to be there, this black piece of wood trim would not cover it, the white, the non-painted part all the way. It would be some showing. So if we put that right there, right on top of that, you'll see that there's none showing. Just a touch. There we go. None showing on either side. Okay, so we don't worry about that space too much. Now, of course, I'll be tapping it in just a little bit, but we're far from putting this baby in. Let me show you what the next problem is. This is our next little hill to climb. This whole thing needs to be glued together between each of these layers, and then it needs to be flattened back out with a clamp. And I've already got the clamps ready to go. The problem is, I'm going to have to take off this wheel because these screws, these top screws anyway, are protruding up through and really not giving me the leeway I need to really flatten it on down. So I'll either take out those screws or take them halfway out so there's no metal on the tip of the screws touching any part of this. Let's get it done. It's pretty certain that this piece right here may have to come off. Boy, this stuff is really wavy. The water, this is where the water got. You know, you can see where it's just not all that straight. Some places it's flatter than others. I don't know. Chances are this thing will have to come off. But it's not a problem. And now the plate, you know, your hinge plate sits on top. So even if that comes off, you know, we've got plenty of room to play with here. I've got 1/4 of an inch to play with right here. So it can go in half that amount, which is a lot more than the thickness of this, and we'd still have it made. And I also measured from this outside edge of this curved part to right here, it's 1/2 inch. That distance right there is 1/2 inch, so we'll know where to place that thing. If things get kind of screwed up here, we'll know where to remount it. I decided to go ahead and remove the bottom hinge plate, and you'll see why. I don't even have to explain it. Okay, out it comes. Now keep in mind that this cabinet will never ever go back to the way it was originally. As far as the wood, you know, there's going to be some wavy spots, there's going to be some gaps. nothing we can do about it. All we can do is minimize it. And once a lot of this is up against the wall or painted and filled in with wood and glue, you won't see a lot of it. So, you know, it's just not going to be perfection. Can't be done. This cabinet is too torn up over the years. But we're going to do our very best to give it a little dignity, okay? So, what I need to do now is this is really screwed up right here. I think what I'm going to do is just go ahead and trim down around here like that and get rid of this top layer. Then we'll see what we can do with the rest. But I do want to get this glued, at least get this corner glued up. And while it's drying, we'll take a look at a couple of other pieces to this jukebox. The procedure for this, we're only going to go out to right there. I put a pencil mark there. That's how far we're going to go. And we're going to take the old Gorilla Glue or Elmer's, whatever you want. We're just basically going to be pouring it down in there until I'm satisfied that there's enough glue to hold it. And guess what? We're not going to spare the horses when it comes to this glue. I want lots of glue down in there. I want it strong. It'll set overnight. Once we get all that done, we're going to go ahead and take this board right here, and we're going to put it right up there like that, and we're going to clamp it in place using these clamps, but not before I put this piece of plastic first. Okay, this plastic right here will prevent the glue that I pour in there that seeps out here, there, and everywhere, which is what I'm really looking for. It keeps the glue from being glued to the board. Wouldn't that be a kick in the butt there? You know, you glue it all up and then you can't get the board off. So that's what the plastic is for. I've done this 1,000 times and it works like a charm. Well, there's your flip side. All the glues just ran down in here, made a big mess. It was great. I loved it. As a matter of fact, I still got a little drippage. I better go down there and get that out of there. And a little bit right there. We'll get that. I made sure the plastic is extended above the board, top and bottom, the entire length. The last thing I want is this thing right here glued to the cabinet. Okay, we'll just let that sit overnight, but we're going to glue one more small thing. You know, I figure what the heck, you know, if I have a little bit of time and a couple of extra clamps, let's just glue everything we can before we call it a day. But after I show you the small thing, there's a couple of things I want to bring out and put on the bench and show them to you. On the inside of our board that runs the full length of the cabinet, top to bottom, there was this squirrely looking thing here. I have no idea what it was used for. It's got tons of rust down the threads, so I don't know, might have had something to do with shipping. But it does have a hole there and a hole there, so something went up through there. I really don't know. I'm going to go ahead and glue it in place. We'll worry about it later. I just noted it was loose, had a couple of screws that went into it. We're going to go ahead and clamp, and we'll glue. This right here is also got to have some glue put down in it. Then we'll go ahead and put this here and we'll clamp it all down, let it set all night, and then tomorrow we'll put the top on it and glue it also. I want to do those two separately. Let's get that all done. We'll use these clamps here. These babies here work pretty good. They just squeeze together and lock tight. Clamp it all together. Well, that's that. Small item, but it was a detail that needed to be taken care of. Alright, now for the biggie. I've got 3 things to go over. You all remember this stereo network box from, I think it was the last video. You remember those had those big coils inside? And you remember that I previously, I think in the first or second video, I showed you these 2 chassis that were fastened to the rear of the door in the jukebox. And when, of course, the door fell off, the previous owner had it, the door fell off, and one of these tubes here broke. And since then it went through the flood, and of course it's covered with dirt. Starting tomorrow, we're going to start cleaning these things. And I'm not going to work on them, but I am going to clean them. I'm going to find out if these letters will stay on. There's a lot of things I need to find out. And I might spray each of the sockets and get those clean. We're going to give it a good cleaning. And but first, let's go back and look at this thing right here. you know, as soon as Brendan saw me take that out, and I said I really wasn't sure what it was for, how it worked. I knew it had something to do with external speakers, that's all. And so he clarified it for me. He immediately sent me an email, and the first line says, "Good morning, John. First of all, I have to ask a question." I love it when my mentor asks me a question. Yes, all right. He says, "Who the hell eats ketchup on a hot dog?" Okay, we won't even talk about that no more. That's gone. He says it's un-American and all this. All right, let's go to the next part of the email. He says that box with the yes/no switch on it is a crossover network, just like you would find in a set of stereo speakers for, you know, modern day stuff. He said higher frequencies are directional, and you can easily tell where the sound is coming from. Lower frequencies are omnidirectional. They simply fill the room. High frequencies, low frequencies. So in the no position, which is where it is right now, this switch right here we're talking about, in the no position, this box lets everything, the high and the lows, go to the speakers inside the jukebox. Alright, that's why it was in the no position, I guess. He said this makes the unit self-contained, so you can just stick it in a corner and let it play. Makes perfect sense to me. But when you switch it to the yes position, it only allows the bass to go to the big speakers in the jukebox. The high frequencies are reproduced by the additional wall speakers. It makes for super stereo separation and a great sound. And this is why he said we're going to add additional speakers to your system, or to this system. Alright, now that brings us up to, we're going to have to add speakers. And where would they go? Well, son of a gun, right here on the left is the amplifier for this jukebox. And we know what an amplifier does. Everybody knows what an amplifier does. It amplifies. Okay, that's all it does. It's separated in the middle. It's two channels, you know, A and B, and then up here is where we'll be hooking those external speakers. Now, this box, this frequency box that Brendan just described, what it's used for, it has to plug in somewhere here near where the external speakers are going to be, because if I flip it to the yes, that means I have external speakers. So we got to be able to at least have it connected in. So let's take a look at this. We've got 5 connectors, and this says phono speakers right there. This is the only way, it'll only plug in one way, and there it is right there, okay? Oh, I haven't got it all the way plugged in. I don't want to plug it all the way in, but right there is where that baby will plug, alright? So that will control the external speakers, and of course the external speakers hook to these 2 screws here, and the other one to these 2 screws here. And let me see, oh yeah, now of course we have to have some sort of matching network to the 8 ohm speakers we're going to be using with this amplifier. Now you all remember, for those of you who watch my videos, the Hallicrafters SX-43 that was sent to me by our good subscriber Ron C required 500 ohm speakers. I mean, 500 ohm speakers. But we went ahead and bought a transformer that would match the 500 ohm speaker requirement of that SX-43 to an 8 ohm speaker. And you'll remember that this was the speaker we bought. I mean, the amplifier, the transformer we bought for the speaker. And guess what? I told you at the time I bought 2 more, and I would be showing you them at a later date. There's one, here's the other. That's what they're going to be used for, to match. This requires a 70 volt speaker, by the way. It says right on it, it says 70 volts and speaker right there. I don't know what the other word is. Can't make that one out. 70 volts. Can't make that out. This 70 volts. 70 volts something. The chassis we have left is called the Tormat. T-O-R-M-A-T. This little jewel has nothing to do with audio. There's no audio in this at all. This little jewel is for, it's a memory circuit for how many coins and how many how many songs have been selected. This is what does it. It's a toroidal memory, a toroid core memory of some kind they came out with in 1955, and they used it all the way up through the 70s. I guess Seeburg did. The early 70s, 71, 72. But this is what remembers what songs to play. Amplifier, Tormat. Let's look underneath, and then we'll wrap this video up. Here's the bottom of our amplifier with all the little wafer switches you would expect to see. All kinds of capacitors you would expect to see. And power transformer, and the two audio output transformers, I believe that's what they are. All the way down separated, like I said, they're the same on both sides. This is your output tube, and that's it. Fortunately, we didn't get a whole lot of mud inside that, but we did get some rust. I don't know if that rust was from the flood or it was already there. Hopefully we won't have that much of a problem with it. But anyway, I'm pretty used to removing transformers and cleaning them up. If I have to, I will. This is what your Tormat looks like. Don't ask me how it works. I haven't the foggiest idea, but you can bet it's complicated. Now, they said they had a toroid memory, and I'll just take their word for it because I don't know what that is. And we have a relay set up down here with contacts. A lot of cleaning is going to have to be done, but I'm not afeared. I'm not scared. We'll just do what needs to be done, and that'll come along at a later date. I don't know, but tomorrow we will get the dirt off this thing and start cleaning up the top. And right, it all looks like it's in really good condition. Of course, all these old capacitors are going to have to go, every last one of them, over there and over here. Anyway, until next time, I hope you learned something new. This is John. Oh, by the way, one last thing. Another use for this cabinet, this jukebox cabinet, in case I can't get it repaired, popped up. Two of our good subscribers. One said I could use it for an outhouse, and the second one popped up and says, yeah, it's a ready-made two-holer. Tell you what, let's do one more thing. One day I was getting ready to leave work, and they were getting ready to throw this little gizmo and gadget away. I guess it's an alarm flasher of some kind on a machine that they had, and they were putting in better ones. And they asked me if I wanted this thing. Works off 120 volts. I said, sure, I don't know what I'm going to do with it. Now check this out. I got a little remote control here. Turns on that big white box right there. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. Is this the coolest thing? That's really neat, huh?